The polished glass doors of the éclat shimmered under the city lights, reflecting the frantic pulse of traffic and the quiet despair brewing within Lily. She stood on the opulent sidewalk, a stark contrast to the crumpled $7 bill clutched so tightly in her damp palm that the paper felt like it might disintegrate. Her heart hammered against her ribs, a frantic drumbeat of anxiety echoing the sheer opulence surrounding her. This was it, the moment she had both dreaded and secretly hoped for. A blind date at a restaurant so expensive, its very existence seemed an affront to her financial reality. Her gaze drifted across the impossibly grand facade, the golden lettering, the impeccably dressed maître d' visible through the window, and a wave of nausea washed over her. $7. That was all she had for the evening, a meager sum that felt microscopic in this lavish world. How could she possibly belong here, even for a single dinner? Meet Lily, a young woman whose spirit shone brighter than any polished silver in that high-end establishment, despite the constant shadows of hardship. Life had carved deep lines of responsibility onto her youthful face, but hadn't managed to dim the optimism dancing in her hazel eyes. Every morning, before the city truly woke, Lily was already on her feet, transforming silent, dusty rooms into sparkling havens for strangers. She worked tirelessly as a maid, her hands accustomed to the abrasive feel of cleaning solutions and the comforting weight of a well-dusted surface. Her days were a relentless cycle of scrubbing, polishing, and tidying, all to support her ailing mother. Mrs. Ramirez, a woman whose once vibrant laughter had been muted by a persistent illness, relied entirely on Lily's meager wages for her medications and daily care. Their small, modest apartment in a bustling American city, though humble, was a sanctuary filled with the warmth of their mutual love and quiet resilience. Lily often found herself staring out their window at the chaotic symphony of urban life, dreaming of a future where medical bills weren't a constant, suffocating cloud, where she could afford a small treat for her mother, and perhaps, just perhaps, carve out a little space for her own dreams. It was her best friend, Clara, bless her well-meaning heart, who had orchestrated this entire predicament. Clara, ever the romantic, had insisted Lily needed a break, a chance to meet someone kind, someone financially stable, someone who could offer a glimpse into a world beyond unpaid invoices and weary sighs. "Lily, you deserve nice things," Clara had exclaimed, her voice bubbling with infectious enthusiasm, completely oblivious to the fresh wound of an unexpected medical bill that had just swallowed nearly all of Lily's savings, leaving her with precisely $7 and a mountain of anxiety. Lily had reluctantly agreed, mainly to appease Clara, but now, standing on the precipice of the éclat, the reality of her limited budget hit her with the force of a physical blow. The thought of embarrassing herself, of being unable to pay her share, gnawed at her. The restaurant, with its intimidating elegance, felt less like a potential escape and more like a trap. What if he ordered something incredibly expensive? What if she couldn't even cover her half of a shared appetizer? The pit in her stomach deepened. She felt utterly, completely out of place, a dandelion trying to bloom in a formal rose garden. Every fiber of her being screamed to turn around, to pretend she never saw the message, to run back to the familiar comfort of her small apartment and her mother's gentle presence. But something inside her, a stubborn spark of hope, a whisper of Clara's optimism, held her rooted to the spot. This was a blind date after all. Maybe he would be understanding. Maybe he wouldn't mind if she just ordered water. The ridiculousness of the situation almost made her laugh. A short, sharp burst of air that quickly dissolved into another sigh. Before we dive deeper into Lily's extraordinary evening, hit that subscribe button and join our community for more compelling stories. The restaurant's grand entrance parted silently, revealing a young man who strode in with an air of casual confidence that instantly made Lily's stomach clench. This must be Mark. He spotted her almost immediately, a polite but somewhat detached smile gracing his lips as he approached her table. His eyes, though assessing, held no warmth, and his handshake was firm, almost perfunctory. "Lily, I presume," he stated, rather than asked, settling into the plush seat opposite her without waiting for an invitation. He didn't seem to notice her slight tremor, nor the way her gaze darted subtly around the opulent dining room, as if seeking an escape hatch. Before Lily could even offer more than a murmured greeting, Mark was beckoning a waiter with an imperious flick of his wrist. "We'll start with the Chateau Margaux, 2005 vintage," he announced, not even glancing at Lily for approval, let alone consultation. Her heart began to pound a frantic rhythm against her ribs. She was vaguely aware that Chateau Margaux was an exceptionally expensive wine, a name whispered in hushed tones in magazines she occasionally glimpsed. A quick mental calculation, based on her limited knowledge of such things, suggested that single order alone could easily eclipse her entire night's budget. She swallowed hard, trying to project an air of sophistication she absolutely did not possess. "Perhaps something a little lighter?" Lily ventured, her voice a shade too high, trying to sound casual. "I'm not much of a red wine drinker usually." She hoped to subtly guide him towards a more affordable, or at least shared, choice. Mark merely waved a dismissive hand. "Nonsense, Lily. One must appreciate the finer things. It's an acquired taste, truly, but worth every penny. You'll thank me." He already seemed to have decided her preferences, or perhaps simply didn't care to ask. The waiter, a man with practiced neutrality, nodded and disappeared. Lily felt a flush of heat creep up her neck. This was going to be far worse than she'd imagined. Mark then turned his attention to the menu, a thick leather-bound tome that felt impossibly heavy in her hands. He scanned it swiftly, his finger hovering over items with names she could barely pronounce, much less afford. The Wagyu steak, medium rare, and probably the truffle pasta as an appetizer, he declared, again without so much as a glance in her direction. "What about you, Lily?" He finally tossed her way, as an afterthought. Lily's eyes, however, were not on the tantalizing descriptions of gourmet delights, but on the small, almost invisible print at the bottom of the page, where the prices lay hidden like treacherous landmines. Each number seemed to scream at her, mocking her meager $7. The truffle pasta alone was more than she earned in an hour. The Wagyu steak, a week's groceries. Panic began to set in, a cold, clammy hand squeezing her chest. She had to try again, more directly this time. "You know, I was actually thinking of something a bit simpler," she began, forcing a smile that felt brittle. "Maybe just a salad, or perhaps the grilled chicken. I had a rather large lunch." It was a feeble lie, but the best she could conjure under pressure. Mark chuckled, a short, sharp sound devoid of humor. "Lily, please. This is a blind date, not a diet clinic. Indulge a little, live a little, I insist. Get whatever you want, but don't hold back." His tone was patronizing, his eyes already drifting back to the menu, signaling the end of the discussion. He dismissed her concerns as if they were insignificant trifles. Lily felt tears prick at the corners of her eyes, which she quickly blinked away. She couldn't let him see her distress. He wouldn't understand, and worse, he wouldn't care. She was completely out of her depth. The conversation that followed was largely one-sided. with Mark regaling her with tales of his business ventures and exotic travels, none of which truly interested Lily, whose mind was racing, desperately trying to devise an escape plan. She discreetly tried to angle her menu so she could see the prices more clearly, her thumb sliding nervously over the numbers, attempting to calculate how much her share of even the cheapest dish would be. It was futile. Even the basic bread basket probably cost more than her entire savings for the evening. She considered feigning a sudden illness, a dizzy spell, anything to get out of there before the inevitable moment the bill arrived. But what if he offered to take her home? That would only prolong the agony. And what if he insisted on paying for a taxi, costing her even more? The thought of inventing a family emergency crossed her mind. Her mother, bless her heart, would never forgive her for lying, but Lily felt trapped in a corner. She couldn't bring herself to confess her financial predicament to this arrogant stranger, who clearly lived in a different world, a world where $7 was likely the cost of a coffee, not a grand sum to be guarded with desperation. She felt a profound sense of humiliation already, a foretaste of the disaster awaiting her. Each clink of silverware, each burst of laughter from other tables amplified her anxiety, making her feel increasingly small and insignificant in this grand, unforgiving setting. Her only hope was that the universe, in its infinite wisdom, might somehow intervene. The clinking of silverware and the hushed murmur of conversation filled the lavish dining room as the meal progressed, each course served with a flourish that only amplified Lily's growing unease. Mark, oblivious to her quiet desperation, continued to regale her with tales of his own supposed accomplishments, his voice a drone beneath the rising tide of her anxiety. Lily tried to focus on his words, to offer polite nods and smiles, but her mind was a whirlwind of calculations, each addition and subtraction leading her further into a financial abyss she couldn't escape. Her throat felt tight, and a cold knot formed in the pit of her stomach. She imagined the waiters, their faces impassive but their eyes holding judgment, as she fumbled to explain her predicament. The opulent surroundings, which at first had seemed merely intimidating, now felt like a gilded cage, trapping her in a situation she hadn't anticipated and couldn't control. Then, with a gentle rustle and the soft placement of a leather-bound folio, the moment arrived. The bill. It lay on the table between them, a silent, menacing presence. Mark, still mid-anecdote about a recent golf tournament, paused only briefly. He glanced at the total, a fleeting flicker across his eyes, before reaching casually for his inner jacket pocket. Lily watched, her breath hitched, a faint glimmer of hope that he would simply take care of it, that this nightmare would end. But the hope was short-lived. Mark's brow furrowed slightly as his hand searched, then returned empty. He patted his other pockets, a theatrical show of surprise spreading across his face. "Oh, blast it!" he exclaimed, a hint of annoyance in his voice. "Would you believe it? I must have left my wallet in my other jacket. Happens all the time." He chuckled, a superficial sound that grated on Lily's raw nerves. He then looked directly at her, a knowing, expectant glint in his eyes. "Looks like you'll have to cover it, my dear. I'll get you back, of course. Forgetting my card is simply a habit." Lily's heart plummeted, sinking like a stone in cold water. A wave of heat rushed up her neck, staining her cheeks a deep crimson. The sophisticated hum of the restaurant seemed to fade into a distant echo, replaced by the frantic beating of her own heart. This was it. The moment she had dreaded, amplified beyond her worst fears. Her vision blurred slightly, the crystal glasses and gleaming cutlery around her losing their sharp edges. Humiliation, hot and sharp, pierced through her. She felt exposed, vulnerable, as if every patron in the room could see her meager funds and her impending shame. How could she possibly cover a bill that undoubtedly amounted to hundreds of dollars? Her paltry $7 felt like a cruel joke, a stark emblem of her precarious reality. The unspoken question in Mark's eyes demanded an answer, yet she had none that wouldn't lead to utter mortification. Her mind raced, grasping for any excuse, any escape, but her thoughts were a tangled mess of panic and despair. Her throat was dry, and she swallowed hard, trying to push down the rising tide of tears. She couldn't cry here, not now, but the burning behind her eyes threatened to betray her. The silence stretched, thick and suffocating between them. She felt the weight of Mark's gaze, impatient and slightly condescending, pressing down on her. Unseen, a few tables away, Michael observed the unfolding drama with a quiet intensity. He had arrived at the restaurant earlier, a solitary figure often found contemplating the intricate dance of human interaction from a discreet distance. Michael, the son of a prominent billionaire, possessed an innate sensitivity to social cues, honed by years of navigating the often superficial world of extreme wealth. He had noticed Lily the moment she walked in, her nervous grace a stark contrast to the often ostentatious clientele. He had then watched Mark's boisterous arrival, his immediate assumption of control, and Lily's subtle, almost imperceptible attempts to regain some semblance of agency. Michael had seen the dismissive wave of Mark's hand when Lily tried to suggest a simpler dish, the quick, almost furtive glances Lily cast at the menu prices, her quiet discomfort during Mark's self-aggrandizing monologues. He had recognized the signs: the arrogant display of perceived dominance, the oblivious self-centeredness, and the quiet, dignified distress of someone caught in an increasingly uncomfortable situation. Now, as Mark executed his well-practiced forgotten wallet routine, Michael's attention sharpened. He saw the genuine panic in Lily's eyes, the flush on her cheeks, the way her hand instinctively tightened on her small purse beneath the table. He understood, with a clarity that few others would, the profound humiliation that was about to be inflicted. Michael had witnessed countless similar scenarios, though rarely as crudely orchestrated. He saw the power dynamics at play, the casual cruelty of a man bent on maintaining an image at the expense of another's dignity. The restaurant, usually a sanctuary of polite discretion, now felt charged with an almost palpable tension, at least to Michael's discerning eye. He recognized the type of individual Mark represented, those who used wealth and social standing as a weapon, oblivious or uncaring of the emotional collateral damage they left in their wake. Michael's gaze moved between Lily's bowed head and Mark's smug, expectant face. A slow, steady resolve began to form within him. The injustice of the situation was undeniable, and Michael, for all his family's wealth, had an unshakable moral compass. He knew with absolute certainty that he could not simply stand by and watch this young woman endure such public degradation. His decision, once made, was firm and unwavering. He would intervene. With no other recourse, a wave of cold dread washed over Lily, settling deep in her stomach. She felt every eye in the room, real or imagined, boring into her. Her heart hammered against her ribs, a frantic bird trapped within her chest. Swallowing hard, she reached into her small, worn purse, her fingers fumbling around the soft lining until they brushed against the single, crumpled bill she had tucked away earlier that morning. It felt impossibly small, a flimsy piece of paper holding the impossible burden of an entire meal. Her hand trembled visibly as she slowly, almost reluctantly, pulled out the faded $7 bill. The green paper seemed to shimmer under the soft restaurant lights, a stark, pathetic contrast to the gleaming silverware and polished crystal on their table. She placed it gently on the pristine white tablecloth, pushing it slightly towards the center, as if to offer a silent apology for its meager sum. Her voice, when it came, was barely above a whisper, laced with an apology she knew was deeply undeserved, yet felt compelled to offer. "I'm so sorry," she murmured, her gaze fixed on the table, unable to meet Mark's eyes. This is all I have with me right now." Each word was a tiny shard of glass, cutting deeper into her already raw sense of self-worth. The silence that followed was deafening, amplified by the gentle clinking of distant cutlery and the hushed murmur of conversations from other tables. It felt like an eternity before Mark finally reacted. Initially, a flicker of genuine shock crossed his face, followed by an expression of pure disbelief. He stared at the single bill, then at Lily, a slow, ugly smirk beginning to spread across his features. His eyes, cold and calculating, raked over her, assessing her with a disdainful scrutiny that made her skin crawl. Then, a harsh, guttural laugh erupted from his throat, loud and jarring in the elegant setting. It wasn't a laugh of amusement, but one of cruel, derisive mockery. He threw his head back, letting out another bark of laughter, deliberately making a scene. Heads at nearby tables began to turn, their conversations dying down as they became aware of the spectacle unfolding. Lily felt a hot flush creep up her neck and flood her cheeks, burning with shame and humiliation. She wished the floor would swallow her whole. $7? Mark scoffed, his voice dripping with condescension, loud enough for those now watching to hear clearly. He picked up the crumpled bill between two fingers, as if it were something vile, and dangled it dismissively. "You show up for a blind date at a place like this with $7? Are you serious? What? Did you think I was going to pay for everything? Do you really think I'm that stupid?" His words were sharp, each one a deliberate jab, designed to inflict maximum pain and public disgrace. "You're trying to con me, aren't you? Trying to get a free meal out of me?" He sneered, his face contorted in a look of disgust. "Honestly, this is pathetic. Absolutely pathetic. You're cheap, and you're a liar." He shook his head slowly, making a show of his indignation. "I've never been so embarrassed in my life. What kind of person acts like this? Trying to pull one over on me in front of everyone?" He gestured wildly around the room, drawing even more attention to their table, reveling in the spotlight, even if it was at Lily's agonizing expense. His voice grew louder, laced with self-righteous anger. "You think you can just show up penniless and expect someone else to foot the bill? You must be out of your mind." Lily felt tears welling in her eyes, hot and stinging, threatening to spill over. Her chest ached with the force of her mortification. She wanted to disappear, to vanish into thin air and escape the suffocating humiliation. Every nerve ending screamed in protest. She closed her eyes briefly, trying to compose herself, to hold back the torrent of emotion threatening to overwhelm her. The whispers from other tables, though she couldn't discern the words, felt like daggers piercing her already fragile composure. Mark's cruel laughter continued to echo in her ears, a tormenting symphony of her deepest fears realized. She felt so small, so utterly worthless, exposed and vulnerable under the harsh glare of his public shaming. Just as the humiliation threatened to become unbearable, a calm, resonant voice cut through the cacophony of Mark's tirade, a voice that carried an undeniable authority, yet was devoid of anger. "Excuse me." The two words, spoken with quiet firmness, pierced through the tense atmosphere, instantly drawing all attention away from Mark and his theatrical indignation. Michael, who had been observing the entire cruel spectacle from his nearby table, could no longer remain a silent witness. The sight of Lily's profound embarrassment, the genuine pain etched on her face, and Mark's utterly despicable behavior resonated deeply within him. It was an affront to basic human decency, and Michael's moral compass simply would not allow it. He had risen fluidly from his seat, his movements deliberate and unhurried. He was impeccably dressed, his posture exuding a quiet confidence that filled the space around him. He moved towards Lily and Mark's table, his gaze steady and unwavering. His presence, an understated force of calm amidst the escalating chaos, commanded immediate attention. The restaurant, which had moments before been punctuated by Mark's boisterous mockery, now fell into an almost absolute silence, everyone sensing a shift in the delicate social balance. Michael stopped beside their table, his tall frame casting a subtle shadow over Mark's suddenly shrinking figure. His eyes, direct and unyielding, fixed first on Mark, then briefly, sympathetically, on Lily. The sheer weight of his presence, his quiet dignity, was enough to bring Mark's crude performance to an abrupt, sputtering halt. Michael's chair scraped softly against the polished floor as he rose, a subtle sound that nonetheless cut through the hushed murmur of the restaurant. His footsteps were deliberate, unhurried, as he approached Lily and Mark's table. The shift in atmosphere was immediate, palpable. Diners who had been discreetly watching the unfolding drama now openly turned their heads, sensing a new development. Mark, still basking in his petty triumph, looked up, a flicker of annoyance crossing his face at the intrusion. Lily, her head still bowed in shame, slowly lifted her gaze, her eyes wide with a mixture of confusion and trepidation. "Is there a problem here?" Michael's voice was calm, measured, yet it resonated with an authority that silenced the small pocket of the restaurant. He didn't raise it, didn't need to. His mere presence commanded attention, his eyes, cool and direct, fixed on Mark, who suddenly seemed to shrink within himself. Mark, caught off guard, stammered, No problem at all, just a bit of a misunderstanding. This young lady here seems to have forgotten her wallet." He attempted a dismissive chuckle, but it sounded hollow, brittle. Michael remained impassive. "On the contrary," he countered, his voice still even, "I believe there is quite a significant problem, and it appears to stem directly from your conduct this evening, Mr." He paused, his gaze unwavering, inviting Mark to supply his name, but also subtly challenging his pretense of normalcy. Mark swallowed hard, his face paling slightly. He was clearly trying to place Michael, to ascertain his status. The expensive suit, the confident demeanor, the effortless command of the situation. These were not the hallmarks of an ordinary bystander. "Mark," he finally managed, his voice considerably less boisterous. "Mark Harrison." "Mr. Harrison," Michael acknowledged with a slight, almost imperceptible nod. "I have been observing your interaction with this lady since you arrived. Your behavior has been, to put it mildly, disrespectful and entirely unacceptable. It takes a remarkable lack of character to intentionally humiliate someone in such a public manner, particularly over something as trivial as a restaurant bill." His words were not an accusation. They were a statement of fact, delivered with the quiet certainty of someone who knew he was right. Mark squirmed, his gaze darting around the room, desperately seeking an escape from Michael's piercing scrutiny. He was accustomed to being the one in control, the one delivering the judgments, not receiving them. The tables had, quite literally, turned. Then Michael shifted his attention to Lily, and his voice softened imperceptibly, shedding its steel for a tone of genuine empathy. He offered her a small, reassuring smile, a stark contrast to the sternness he had directed at Mark. "Please don't concern yourself with this matter," he said, his words a balm to her raw nerves. "I'll take care of the bill. It's truly no trouble at all." He reached into the inner pocket of his jacket, pulling out a slim wallet. He wasn't flaunting his ability to pay. It was simply a matter-of-fact action, devoid of any pity or condescension. He motioned to a passing waiter, who seemed to materialize instantly at his side, already anticipating Michael's request. Lily was stunned. Her mind, ravaged by humiliation just moments before, struggled to process this sudden, breathtaking turn of events. Here was a stranger, a man of obvious means and quiet dignity, stepping in to rescue her from a nightmare, not with a grand gesture, but with a simple, profound act of kindness. Her eyes, still brimming with unshed tears, met Michael's. She saw no judgment, only a calm, understanding concern. A wave of immense relief washed over her, so potent it almost buckled her knees. The crumpled $7 bill, still clutched in her trembling hand, suddenly felt insignificant, a relic of a terror that was now, miraculously, receding. Mark, meanwhile, had witnessed the entire exchange. His face, which moments ago had held a mask of arrogant superiority, now contorted into a mixture of fear and dawning recognition. He had been trying to place Michael, and suddenly, the pieces clicked into horrifying place. The reserved table in the exclusive section of the restaurant, the deference of the staff, the quiet authority in his voice, it all pointed to one terrifying conclusion. Mark had a fleeting, sickening thought. Could this possibly be Michael Sterling, the youngest son of the Sterling Industries magnate, known for his sharp intellect and even sharper sense of justice? The very same Michael Sterling whose family controlled vast swathes of the city's commerce and whose influence reached into every elite circle. A cold sweat broke out on Mark's brow. His bravado, so recently on full display, evaporated instantly, leaving behind only a terrified, sycophantic shell. He stammered, attempting to backtrack, to salvage his rapidly crumbling reputation. "Mr. Sterling, I apologize. I had no idea. It was just a joke, a misunderstanding, really. My sincerest apologies to you and to Lily. I truly meant no harm." He sounded pathetic, desperate, his words tripping over each other in his haste to appease the man whose wrath he now feared more than anything. The smug, condescending air he had worn so confidently just minutes before had vanished, replaced by a craven subservience. His carefully constructed facade shattered, revealing the fragile insecurity beneath. He was not just embarrassed. He was terrified of the repercussions of offending someone of Michael's stature. The silent judgment of the other diners, which he had so easily dismissed when it was directed at Lily, now felt like a crushing weight upon him. He knew, with a chilling certainty, that his casual cruelty had just cost him far more than a restaurant bill. Michael simply looked at Mark, a direct gaze that held no anger, only profound disappointment and a quiet authority that instantly withered Mark's bravado. Mark, shrinking under Michael's unwavering stare, mumbled a few more incoherent apologies, his face now a mottled red. He quickly gathered his belongings, not even offering a glance in Lily's direction, and practically sprinted out of the restaurant, leaving an awkward silence in his wake. The tension that had gripped the dining room slowly dissipated as other patrons returned to their meals, though a few lingering, curious glances remained fixed on Lily and Michael. Michael then turned his full attention to Lily, his expression softening considerably. He offered her a warm, reassuring smile, his eyes conveying a genuine kindness that instantly put her a fraction more at ease. "Everything is fine now, Lily," he said, his voice calm and gentle. "You have absolutely nothing to be embarrassed about. Believe me." He extended a hand towards hers, a gesture of comfort and solidarity rather than pity. Lily, still somewhat dazed by the whirlwind of events, tentatively took his hand. Its warmth and steadiness felt like an anchor in the chaotic sea of her emotions. A tear, which she had so desperately tried to hold back, finally escaped and traced a path down her cheek, a release of the immense pressure she had been under. I don't know what to say," she stammered, her voice barely a whisper, her eyes still wide with a mix of shock and overwhelming gratitude. "Thank you. Truly. I've never been so humiliated in my life, and then you." She trailed off, searching for the right words to express the magnitude of his intervention. Michael squeezed her hand gently. "No thanks necessary, Lily. It was the right thing to do. No one deserves to be treated that way." He then signaled to the waiter, who had been discreetly keeping his distance, and settled the entire bill with a swipe of his card, adding a generous tip. Once the transaction was complete and the waiter had departed, Michael turned back to Lily. "Would you perhaps consider staying for a moment, perhaps for a proper cup of coffee or a dessert? We've certainly had an eventful evening, and I wouldn't want you to leave feeling shaken." Lily hesitated for a moment, then looked into his kind, steady eyes. The thought of going home immediately, reliving the mortification, was unappealing. And there was something about Michael that felt genuinely safe and comforting. I would like that very much, Michael," she replied, a faint smile touching her lips for the first time that evening. They moved to a quieter table, a small, intimate corner where they could speak without feeling observed. The initial awkwardness quickly dissolved as they began to talk, not about the recent incident, but about life, about their aspirations, about things that truly mattered. Michael began by asking about her, genuinely interested, not just making polite conversation. Lily, emboldened by his sincerity and comfort, found herself opening up, sharing fragments of her life she rarely discussed with strangers. She spoke of her mother, of her unending love and concern for her well-being, the reason behind her relentless work ethic. She described the challenges of making ends meet, the constant worry, but also the deep satisfaction she found in caring for her mom and in her dreams of pursuing further education to become a social worker, to help others facing similar struggles. Her voice, though soft, carried an undercurrent of strength and resilience that deeply impressed Michael. She spoke not with self-pity, but with a quiet determination that shone through her tired eyes. Michael listened intently, nodding occasionally, his gaze unwavering. He offered insights, asked thoughtful questions, and revealed a perceptiveness that went far beyond his years. When it was his turn, Michael shared parts of his own story. He spoke not of his family's vast financial empire, but of the immense pressure that sometimes came with it, the expectations, and the constant need to prove his worth beyond his surname. He confessed his own desire to make a meaningful difference in the world, a passion that often found its outlet through his family's philanthropic foundation. He spoke of projects he was personally involved with, initiatives aimed at supporting education and healthcare in underserved communities. He revealed a thoughtful, sensitive soul, burdened by the responsibilities of his position, but driven by a profound desire to use his privilege for good. As they spoke, the vast chasm of their different worlds seemed to shrink. Lily saw past his elegant clothes and polished demeanor to a man of genuine empathy and intelligence. Michael, in turn, recognized in Lily a spirit of unparalleled strength, integrity, and warmth, attributes far more valuable than any material wealth. They found common ground in their shared values: kindness, integrity, a desire to help others, and a quiet resilience in the face of life's challenges. The conversation flowed effortlessly, moving from light-hearted anecdotes to deeper reflections, each revelation strengthening the inexplicable connection that had sparked between them amid such an unlikely and unfortunate circumstance. The restaurant had emptied out significantly by the time Michael finally called for the check for their coffee and dessert. He insisted on walking Lily home, ensuring her safety in the late hour, and as they walked, their conversation continued, weaving a thread of genuine connection that neither of them had expected to find that evening. Lily felt a lightness she hadn't experienced in years, a sense of hope blooming in her heart, nurtured by Michael's unexpected kindness. And Michael, for his part, felt a profound admiration for this strong, selfless woman who had faced adversity with such grace. Over the following weeks, their paths continued to intertwine, not by chance this time, but by conscious, eager choice. Michael and Lily found themselves drawn to each other with an intensity that surprised them both. Their initial connection, forged in the crucible of an awkward blind date and a public humiliation, deepened steadily into a genuine friendship, a safe harbor where they could truly be themselves. Then, almost imperceptibly, that friendship began to blossom into a budding romance, tender and hopeful, defying the vast differences in their backgrounds. Michael was utterly captivated by Lily's unwavering spirit. He admired her resilience in the face of relentless adversity, her kindness that shone through every interaction, and her quiet strength that belied her gentle demeanor. He saw a woman who worked tirelessly, not for personal gain, but out of profound love and duty for her mother, a quality he found infinitely more admirable than any superficial charm. He cherished her honesty, her directness, and the way her eyes would sparkle when she talked about her dreams for a better future, not just for herself, but for others. Lily, in turn, found herself falling for Michael's genuine heart, his profound humility that was so unexpected given his immense wealth and his sharp, insightful intelligence. She saw past the luxurious car, the expensive clothes, and the famous surname, recognizing a man who was burdened by privilege but determined to use it for good. She discovered a playful side to him, a dry wit that often made her laugh, and a deep well of empathy that resonated with her own compassionate nature. He listened intently, remembered details, and made her feel seen and valued in a way no one ever had before. Their dates were simple at first: walks in the park, visits to local cafes, evenings spent discussing books or societal issues. But each encounter solidified their bond. They found joy in shared silences and profound comfort in each other's presence. The difference in their worlds, which had initially seemed an insurmountable barrier, became a source of fascinating exploration and mutual learning. Of course, navigating the challenges of their differing social statuses was not without its trials. Michael's sophisticated social circle, accustomed to a certain pedigree and expectation, viewed Lily with a mixture of curiosity and thinly veiled disapproval. Whispers followed them in exclusive venues. Questions were discreetly posed to Michael about his new companion, and some of his long-standing acquaintances made it clear they considered Lily an unsuitable match. Lily, for her part, initially grappled with her own insecurities. She felt the weight of judgment, the implied questions about her intentions, and the stark contrast between her modest wardrobe and the designer labels that filled Michael's life. There were moments of doubt, where she wondered if she truly belonged, if she was inadvertently pulling Michael away from his world into hers, or vice versa. However, their bond, forged in deep respect and genuine affection, proved stronger than any external judgments or internal anxieties. Michael consistently championed Lily, subtly yet unequivocally demonstrating his commitment to her. He would gently redirect conversations, introduce her with pride, and ensure she felt comfortable and included in every setting. He reassured her that her worth was inherent, not derived from her social standing or material possessions. He made it clear that her courage, kindness, and intelligence far outshone any superficial trappings of wealth. Lily, inspired by his unwavering support, gradually shed her initial insecurity. She understood that while their backgrounds were different, their core values aligned perfectly, and that was what truly mattered. As their relationship deepened, Michael became a profound source of support for Lily's personal growth. He encouraged her to pursue her long-held aspirations, reminding her that her dreams were valid and within reach. He gently suggested enrolling in courses to further her education, recognizing her innate intelligence and desire to learn. He helped her navigate the application processes for evening classes in social work, connecting her with resources and offering practical assistance to ease the transition. He emphasized repeatedly that this pursuit was not about changing who she was, but about empowering her to achieve her full potential, reinforcing that her inherent worth was already complete, not tied to any future degree or career. He believed in her implicitly, and his belief became a powerful catalyst for her own self-belief. Lily, with Michael's unwavering encouragement, began to flourish. She excelled in her studies, her passion for social justice finding a new, structured outlet. She discovered capabilities she hadn't known she possessed, her confidence growing with each successful step. She still maintained her meticulous care for her mother, but now she did so with a renewed sense of purpose and a lighter heart, knowing that a brighter future was not just a distant dream, but a tangible path she was actively walking. The contrast between her humble beginnings and her blossoming life was stark, yet it was a testament to the transformative power of genuine connection and unconditional support. Her journey was no longer solely one of survival, but one of thriving, of embracing possibility with open arms. Michael watched her transformation with immense pride, knowing he had found not just a partner, but an equal, a woman whose spirit continually inspired him. Their love story was becoming a testament to the idea that true connection transcends superficial barriers, building a foundation of mutual respect and shared dreams. The weeks that followed that remarkable evening solidified the unexpected bond forged between Michael and Lily. Their initial hesitant dates quickly blossomed into a profound connection, built upon shared laughter and heartfelt conversations. Michael, captivated by Lily's unwavering spirit and inherent goodness, found himself drawn to her resilience, a quality he deeply admired. He saw past her financial struggles, recognizing instead the immense richness of her character. Her kindness was a gentle light, her wit a surprising delight, and her quiet determination an endless source of inspiration to him. Lily, in turn, discovered in Michael a depth and humility that transcended his formidable family name and considerable wealth. She saw a man who genuinely cared, who listened intently, and whose intelligence was matched only by his compassion. His support was not patronizing, but empowering, always encouraging her to pursue her own ambitions while respecting her journey. They navigated the complexities of their vastly different worlds with a shared commitment to understanding and mutual respect. Some within Michael's elite social circles initially raised eyebrows, their whispered judgments about Lily's background failing to penetrate the protective bubble Michael had built around their burgeoning relationship. He dismissed their superficial critiques with a quiet confidence, making it clear that his personal choices were not subject to their narrow-minded opinions. Lily, too, grappled with occasional insecurities, the echoes of Mark's cruel words sometimes resurfacing, making her question if she truly belonged in Michael's world. Yet, every time she voiced a doubt, Michael was there, his reassurance unwavering, his love a constant affirmation of her worth. He consistently reminded her that her value was intrinsic, not defined by her past circumstances or the opinions of others, but by the extraordinary person she was. Their bond, rooted in genuine affection and profound mutual admiration, proved far more resilient than any external judgment or societal expectation. Michael became Lily's most ardent champion, supporting her dreams with both emotional encouragement and practical assistance. He connected her with educational resources, helping her research programs that aligned with her aspirations to become a social worker. He offered to cover the tuition, framing it not as a gift or charity, but as an investment in her future, an extension of his belief in her capabilities. Lily, initially hesitant to accept such aid, eventually understood that Michael's generosity came from a place of pure love and a desire to see her flourish. She enrolled in evening classes, balancing her studies with her demanding work, her determination burning brighter than ever. Michael was always there, celebrating her successes, offering comfort during challenging moments, and ensuring she never felt overwhelmed. He would often remind her, "Your strength is your greatest asset, Lily. My role is simply to clear some of the obstacles so you can shine even brighter." She began to flourish, her confidence blooming with each past exam and every new concept mastered. She found her voice, not just in her studies, but in expressing her thoughts and feelings with greater ease, shedding the protective shell she had worn for so long. She realized that Michael saw her as an equal partner, someone whose perspective and values were just as important as his own, if not more so. And so, after many months of growing together, of overcoming challenges both internal and external, Michael and Lily made the joyous decision to formalize their relationship. Their announcement was met with heartfelt celebration by those who truly knew and cherished them. Lily's mother, witnessing her daughter's happiness and thriving spirit, shed tears of pure joy, her heart swelling with gratitude for the man who saw and adored Lily for who she truly was. The initial anxiety and fear that had once clouded Lily's life had dissipated, replaced by a profound sense of peace and an exhilarating anticipation for the future. Her days were no longer consumed by the desperate calculation of $7, but by the boundless possibilities of a life shared with a man who understood and respected her down to her core. Together, Michael and Lily began to build a future, not just materially, but emotionally and spiritually. Their home became a sanctuary of mutual respect, unwavering love, and deep understanding. Lily, no longer merely the maid's daughter or defined by her past struggles, had found not just happiness, but a profound purpose woven into the fabric of her new life, a purpose that extended to her evolving career path as she pursued her passion for helping others. Michael, in turn, had found in Lily a partner who valued him unconditionally, who loved him for his genuine heart and not his inherited wealth, someone who grounded him and inspired him to be a better man every single day. Their story, born from an unfortunate blind date and a moment of profound humiliation, had transformed into a beautiful testament to the enduring power of kindness, the unexpected magic of genuine human connection, and the vital importance of looking far beyond superficial appearances to discover the true riches that lie within the heart. It was a story that truly reminded everyone who heard it that destiny often arrives in the most unexpected and challenging of disguises. Lily's journey reminds us that true riches lie in character and heart. If this story moved you, give it a thumbs up, share it with a friend, and let us know in the comments what you think about unexpected connections. Don't forget to subscribe for more inspiring narratives like this one. What other hidden depths do you think people carry? Join us next time for another tale of destiny.